that we'll be seeing. And this is episode 2 of, from platform to purpose, right? You're more than your sport. You're more than the game. And I'm excited to talk about tonight's topic. But I'm going to start off with a question. You see a lot of things in social media. You see a lot of things in the news about athletes and the things that they go through. But what if I was to share with you that the confusion, the bad decision making, all of these unnecessary things that we see in the media are all the doing of a situation called the athlete identity foreclosure? And what if I told you that there was a section within that called involuntary retirement that causes these athletes to go off the deep end, but it was something that they could actually fix if they just were aware of it? But that's what we want to talk about tonight. So, as you know, my talking style, I have a background in a couple of things. One, I got my degree in kinesiology, so I was a teacher for a while. So I'm a teacher. That's what I do. I learn information and I share it. And so the hopes is that the information that I share every week will be able to help other athletes that deal with the athlete identity foreclosure and have had the experiences of the things that I speak to. So tonight we're going to talk about something that nobody in sports prepares you for. And that's having the game taken away from you before you're ready. Now, subsequently, when we talk about this topic, the reality is that the numbers are not in favor of the athlete, right? We can start it from high school to college. About 4% of high school athletes will get a D1 scholarship. That's about 4%. From that 4%, 2% of Division I athletes, or less than 2% of Division I athletes, will be drafted in the NFL. From that number, you have an average career span of 3.3 years. So the reality is that a college graduate has a longer career span than a professional athlete. I'm going to move this mic because that's going to bother me. I'm just going to hold it. All right, so that a college athlete has a longer career span than an NFL athlete. Now, when you know the numbers, you can look at it from a logical standpoint to understand, hey, look, the reality of these people making it to the next level is extremely slim, right? That's just if you're looking at it from the numerical standpoint. But what you got to understand is you got to understand the mentality of an athlete, right? So let's walk through the mentality. More than likely, this athlete has been, praised since the time they were a young child, right? 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. They were the best in their sport. You had parents that were all coming up to the parent and sharing, all of the things that they had seen with this child. Like, oh my gosh, your kid is so great. He's so amazing. She's so amazing. She's a natural, or she's definitely going to go to the next league. So all of a sudden that identity is being formed, right? And so now they move on. Middle school, they win all of these awards. They're the best on the field. They're the best on the court. They're the best, on the diamond, whatever the sport is. They're the best. And then they move to high school, and this is where it gets interesting, right? And then we can remove NIL and ranking systems and all of those things away from it. Now they get to high school, and in high school, not only are they being touted as one of the greatest athletes in their school, now they're being compared to being one of the greatest athletes in their city. Now they're on media blogs. Now their video edits made of them. Now their social media is popping. Now they have everybody in their inbox telling them how you're the next one. You're the one that's up. And let's keep climbing. So they get to the next level. They get to that D1 level. They get the NIL deal, right? They get the accolades. They're the one. And all of a sudden, their dream does come true. How does the dream come true? Maybe they hear their name called on draft day, right? And everybody in the city is glad to hear them. They're glad to see them there. They're so excited about what they can do for them athletically and how this is going to be the staple of their team. But here's something that a lot of athletes don't think about. Because why would you? You see, as a warrior, you never think about the opposite side of sports. And the opposite side of sport is that what happens not if, but when it doesn't go the way that you want it to. And that's what tonight's topic is about: involuntary retirement, right? So before I get into it, I want to paint a scene, right? From my own personal story. Because what I just walked you guys through was me. From the time that I was like 4 or 5 years old, or probably even before that, coming out of the womb, I wasn't a big baby, but I grew fast. So by the time I was 5, I was looking like a 7, 8, 9-year-old, right? When I was 11 years old, I was playing with 13 and 14-year-olds on the football field, right? My athletic prowess was there. Like I left the country to go to Europe to play in Spain for the Junior Olympics in basketball. When I got back, I became the #1 tight end in the state of Texas. Now, look, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm giving you guys insight to how easily you can get caught up in this world of sport and just knowing that you're on this trajectory of success, but it doesn't always work that way, right? And so I was the one that had my name called. I was the one that got drafted in the 130th pick with the 4th round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Tony Hill's tackle out of the University of Texas. Heard my name called. You want to know what happened 3 years later? After hearing my name called, I'm sitting in my locker, and I can remember it like yesterday. I'm sitting in my locker, and all of a sudden, we got this guy. We call him the Reaper, right? When the Reaper come, everybody know who the Reaper is. When the Reaper come, you know that's it, right? So I see the Reaper come, and I see him walking down the hall, right? And he hangs a left, and he walks towards my direction. Now, at this time, I'm a little confused because I'm like, okay, I know I made the team, so who is he coming to see? There's nobody around me. He walks straight to my locker. Hey, Tony, coach needs to see you. Bring your stuff. So now as I get up here and, I hear all of the things that they have to say about, hey, we like you, numbers thing. We have to get the numbers right, blase, blase, X, Y, and Z. I left like a professional. But I can remember getting into my 2008 at that time, GMC Denali with the engine humming, putting my head on the steering wheel, trying to figure out, bro, what the heck am I going to do now? Because see, at this time, I was married and I had my wife at the time was pregnant with our first child. And the only thing that I knew was sports. The only thing that I knew was ball. The only thing that I knew is that if I put the work in, I would be rewarded. If I did everything right, I would be rewarded. That's not how that works. You see, the involuntary part about retirement is I didn't sign up to be cut. That decision was made for me. So as I'm walking out with my plastic bag, getting in my car, trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with myself, I didn't understand then that situation was crafting me on what I would be doing today. And I learned something valuable. And that thing that I learned that was valuable ended up becoming a law. I started creating these laws for myself, things that would become value systems for me down the road, so that whenever situations like this or any other thing that I perceived to be negative would happen, I could always go back to the law to understand. And the law that came out from this was called the law of identity. And what the law of identity simply states is we never, ever attach ourselves to anything that can be taken away from us. You never attach yourself to anything that can be taken away from you. That is the law of identity. You see, so many athletes attach themselves to their sport, right? The psychologists say it is due to the fact that at a young age, their identity has already been set in stone and molded by the sport. So they have missed an immense elevation within growth called the identity exploration period. This is the period where a multitude of opportunities are placed before you as a youngster, and you get to embellish in those things until you figure out what it is that you actually enjoy, what you actually have interest in, or other things that might not just be purpose driven, but they're passion driven, right? Like you have a passion for that thing. That might not be why you were created, but it's something that you're really good at and you take joy in doing that. As an athlete, you don't get those things, right? And so now your identity is aligned with this sport. And when it doesn't go the way that you thought it would, now you're left scrambling. Now you're left wondering. And I've been in those situations and I've helped people in those situations, which is the reason why I decided to do these lives, right? So I had realized that feeling of being celebrated, all of the noise of, man, I seen you on Sunday, I seen you doing your thing, or I seen you on Saturday when I was playing college ball, man, I seen you doing all of that. Hey, if you ever need anything, all of that, it was gone. It got really quiet. And that's when I had to realize that whenever the light is on you the brightest, that's when most of the people that really aren't in your corner will show up. But whenever that light is dim, that's when you'll find out who's really there for you, because now they're making the decision to be there for you, not off of any gain, because subsequently your value had been attached to that sport. So there's nothing for them to gain other than wanting to be your friend, or other than wanting to be your confidant or your buddy or whatever it is that they label themselves. They're there for you. So I found out in the darkness, that's when I found out who my family truly is, right? And that was a wonderful lesson. So if you're an athlete and you're in that transitional phase, or you've been cut, or you're trying to figure out what life looks like, understand that it's going to be about a couple of things. One, figuring out who you are, but two, shifting your perspective. This thing didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And it happens to everybody, whether you're Tom Brady, right, that's being cut by the Patriots, whether you're Peyton Manning, right, that's been cut by the Denver Broncos, the Indianapolis Colts to go to the Denver Broncos. I've played with not Sean Payton. I've played with Drew Brees, who was cut by the Chargers because he had an injury and they didn't think he could do it anymore. This is what happens in sport. People have their thought processes and their values on you. Those are the non-controllables. The thing that you can control is understanding that the game, whatever sport you're playing, it has always been a platform. It has never been your purpose. So we have to start there, right? So the reality is that when that situation took place, I didn't really have a language, right? I didn't have the experience of knowing what it looked like no longer being on a team, right? I had to figure that part out. And eventually I would get picked up and go on and have a career, but I still remember what that felt like. And my story is a little different from others because others might have gotten just one opportunity. Others might not have even made it out of training camp. Others might have gotten to a mini camp and never got another shot. And they're forced to try to figure out, what in the world do I do now? Because I put everything into this particular basket and it didn't pan out the way that I wanted it to. Right? So what I want to do is I want to give you guys the definition of involuntary retirement and then what I say involuntary retirement is. So involuntary retirement is retirement that is not for a cause in or before retirement age, right? What I say is in a broader term that it stems from circumstances outside the individual's control, leaving that person facing a challenging transition with skills that may feel misaligned with what comes next. And of course, it's going to feel misaligned because when has the athlete been shown that they have transferable skills that can elevate them in many other spaces outside of sport? All they have been told are all the cliches. Work harder than everybody else. The early bird gets the worm. You got to want it. Like all of these proverbial statements that have been said, right? If you work hard, you're going to be rewarded. That's not true. It is so many people that I've seen that literally gave everything to their sport and was never given an opportunity to really show what they had, whether it was politics, whether it was their body, whether, coaches thinking that this wasn't the type of player to fit their system. It was a systematic issue. Didn't matter. They never got an opportunity, but they were some of the hardest workers. And in that, there's a lesson. Sometimes you can work extremely hard and still not reap the reward. But again, that goes back to the law of identity. Don't labor, right? Don't labor to get to the reward. Labor because you want to gain something out of what it is that you're doing. Labor for the lesson, right? That's what you want to labor for. So within that aspect, I want to talk about something that I read. Chris Bosh. This was good. So I read, it was called The Last Chip. It was a blog that Chris Bosh wrote. And in that blog, this is dealing with when he found out about his blood clots, right? And how he basically was going to have to retire. It wasn't basically about it. He had to retire. It was a life or death situation. That is involuntary retirement. His body failed him so that he could no longer continue playing the game that he loved. And it was so interesting hearing him talk about how he was embarrassed to walk outside because his whole life he had been the basketball player. Now he felt like he had no identity. And he saw that, from the social aspect, this is how everybody looked at him. This is how everybody treated him. And he could see the pity that they had on their face because of the situation. And not only did that make him feel a certain type of way as it pertains to being sad, but it also angered him. Because here's somebody that gave everything to the game, but his body failed him. He did everything right, but his body failed him. This is what I'm talking about. And this is coming from somebody that's a Hall of Famer. And this is coming from somebody that had an amazing career, won a championship, all of that. And even that person is saying, this is how I felt. So can you imagine the individual who was the man or the woman when they were playing the game and at a higher level as a D1 athlete to get to the professional league and not even get an opportunity to sniff the court, to sniff the field? Could you imagine the psychological warfare that plays on their mind? The despair, the depression. There's so many athletes out there that deal with this. And so within that, in The Last Chip, he said, I lost the one thing I had always identified myself as. He talked about the family. It's kind of like the family atmosphere that you have as an athlete, the locker room, the trainers, the coaches, the corporate executives, all of those people that you form and fashion these relationships with. Now it's all gone. So the built-in family that you had is lost. And that's something that's behind the game that a lot of fans don't know about, nor would even think about, is what has the athlete lost when the game has been removed from them, right? For Chris, it was heavy. But there's a biblical verse that I want to talk about. Proverbs 19:21 says, there are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, it's the counsel of the Lord that shall stand. At the end of the day, I'm a biblical based believer, right? So at the end of the day, what I've come to realize is that The plans that we have for our lives may not align with the plans that God has for our lives. And because we can't ask God, hey, Lord, what are you thinking about? What are we doing? How are we moving? Right? Because we have our own thought process, it forces us to move in a space of having faith. And it's not easy. It's not easy to be at a level that less than 1% of people get to, and now to have that removed from you. But this is why I talk about the laws, creating that value system, that perspective. And the younger that you have it, the better that you fare, right? But the law of identity, not attaching myself to anything that can be taken away from me. Because now when I get into that transition phase, yes, there will be a sadness for what I've done, right? Because I did this thing for so long. This was a part of who I was. But I'm also excited about moving forward and what that life looks like. And so the danger isn't the cut, it's what you believe about yourself after the cut. You see, most athletes either chase the game trying to get back in, or they go completely numb. Both are symptoms of the wound. Identity was never separated from the jersey. We see this. I'm listening to people like Terrell Owens at almost 50. He might even be 50 years old, talk about how he can still help an NFL team if they give him a shot. Now, most people will look at that and talk about that. You know, that's the competitive nature of an athlete. I get that. But what I see is that's an athlete that hasn't moved on. And no matter what it is that you do in life, you cannot truly have the success that you want because you're always looking back in the past. You're allowing your past to be your prisoner as opposed to being your professor to help you move on into your purpose. See, we have to understand that this game, no matter how long we played it, it will move on. It will choose somebody else. We have to prepare for that. And the ones that aren't prepared for that, the young kids call it the crash out. This is what we start seeing. We start seeing the Brandon Ayuks, right? Driving 100 miles per hour with arrest warrants. We start seeing the domestic violence, right? We start seeing the schemes and the scams to be able to get to money, because we never were shown how to do the work of purpose. We were told as athletes, we were told multiple times, oh, you got to have something out of this after this game. You got to do right with your money. We were told it. But if anybody that is a parent that's watching this, how many times have you told your child something and they haven't done what you said? But when you showed them the reason behind it, now it's like you never had to tell them again. Right? You can tell me something, but showing me something actually gives me the benefit of understanding how to create something. This is the reason that they say that if you give someone a fish, they'll eat for a day. But if you teach someone to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. Now, here's the reality. And I get why, I understand the psychological aspect of this, but this is a reality. If you're an athlete and you're watching this, that same mentality that you have, that warrior mentality that you have about never quitting, about never giving up, about not losing, right? That can also be your hindrance when people are giving you sound advice, but your ego and your pride are too high and you're too stubborn and too haughty in spirit to hear what others are saying. So there's an onus on us as the athlete too, to be able to hear wisdom and to ask the right questions so that we can get the right answers. It's not just on everybody else, it's on us as well. You have to start creating that separation of athlete and person. And the earlier that you do it, the more success that you will have after the field. So I took some notes on his blog. He said, oh, this was big. He said, life had suddenly become meaningless. I didn't know who I was outside of basketball because basketball was everything I had poured my heart and soul into, and there was nothing else left. There was nothing else left. And it's so interesting that he felt that way because you're talking about a man that had a wife and children, foundations, that's done good for a lot of different people, philanthropy. He had things that were going on. And I'm not ostracizing his words. Please don't take it that way. What I'm sharing with you is the heart of how athletes feel when the thing that they've poured so much into is now removed. This is coming from his blog, The Last Chip. You guys should go check it out. It's a really good blog. It gives you some really great insight on what high performance sports is about. The behind the scenes aspect, not the stuff that you see on a Saturday or a Sunday. So what is the path forward? How do you get to clarity how do you gain clarity and leverage that clarity to move into creation? You don't leap from pain to purpose. You start by seeing clearly. Remove the judgment. Remove judgment of yourself, remove judgment of others, remove judgment of the sport, right? Remove all of that. Just take honest inventory of yourself. Who are you without the position? What do you actually value? What has the game taught you that belongs to you forever, regardless of the contract? So as you continue reading his blog, what you come to find is that eventually it was his children that helped him to start seeing things clearly, right? His toddlers would ask him, "Hey, Daddy, why are you so sad?" And he thought he was hiding it, but he wasn't. His seed was able to see, hey, Dad's in discomfort. There's something going on with him. And by them seeing that, he started to see clearly about his situation and what was going on. The next thing is when we talk about this foundation, and what I'm telling you guys is about a framework that I have called Clarity to Creation. So the first part of that process, what Chris Bosh did, he started to see clearly. The next thing is he became aware of how he was feeling, of how it was affecting his family. And he started to do something about it. So what he did is he started diving in to PTA meetings, diving in on date nights with his wife. He started reaching for the things that were around him and creating something from that, right? The next thing is you have to build a vision. So after you have the clarity and after you become aware, you have to build a vision. For him, he got into writing. He got into philanthropy. He has a passion of educating people about pursuing their passion, right? And then you have to create. And in the creation factor, he has the team tomorrow. That's his philanthropy foundation. And he's creating a lot of opportunities for other people, and he's found his passion and his purpose through that. So your identity is not in the sport. Your identity is in who Yahweh or who God says you are. Because the fact of the matter is that's going to be the thing that always remains. So what I want to do is I want to go to the board. Let me see. I've got my board here, my trusty board. All right. Y'all should be able to see that. And I want to just, here, let me do something with this mic. All right, that'll work. All right, hopefully y'all can hear me. If y'all don't hear, y'all can hear me. Let me know y'all can hear me. All right, I want to create this for you guys, right? This is you talk about clarity to creation. This is the clarity to creation framework, right? All right, so when you retired as an athlete, oh man, might need to use a black marker. Try the black marker. When you retire as an athlete, you're basically on the bottom floor, right? This is involuntary retirement, IR. It's funny because, IR in football means injured reserve, but here it's involuntary retirement. This is your body has failed, right? As like Chris Bosh, or there's a system misalignment, meaning that they brought you in, but you don't fit the system that they have. So they discard you and you never get an opportunity again. That happens often. There is mental anguish that takes place. We see that a lot. That thing brings on depression, right? Which then affects your play, right? So you weren't ready for the pressure of what professional sports brings, right? So now you're in this space. In this space, psychologically, they call this the void. I call it the wilderness. This is when you've been an athlete your entire life. You're at the bottom floor. Here's you, right? Don't laugh at my drawing. And you don't know what to do, right? You don't know what to do. What to do, right? Okay, so this is where pretty much all athletes start out. Whether you've had financial success, you maybe have some investments. At the end of the day, you don't know. I've had successful guys that have transitioned well out of sport. They play golf all day. They're with their family. You would see on the outside that it seems as though they're having a great time. They don't have to do the hard work anymore. Money's good. They don't have a care in the world, but they also don't know who they are, and who they serve. And so now they feel lost. Even when people are around them, they feel lonely because they haven't identified their purpose. So the first thing, that's the first floor. So what we have to do is we have to get to this next level. This next level is we have to now start to seek out clarity. I spelled that wrong. So thinking about two words, clearly. We have to seek out clarity, right? We have to start to identify clearly what we're going through. And this takes time, right? You have to be patient. You have to be real with yourself. This is your look in the mirror moment, right? That's your look in the mirror moment. Okay? This moment right here is where so many athletes fail because they're not able to identify why they are the way they are after retirement. Because they're still dealing with the athlete identity foreclosure, AIF, right? We have to start getting to this next level. We have to start looking at how do we become more aware? In the awareness phase, this is the identity phase. Identity phase / awareness phase. All right. In the awareness phase, this is where we have to start understanding that I talked about this earlier, that the sport is our platform. It's not our purpose. All right. And there's a lot of work that has to come here. This is where we need to start tapping into our friend circle. We might even need to do some therapy. We need to understand that this here will also take time, and we need to understand that we need alone time to do what's called IE, identity exploration. There is no time frame for this. As a matter of fact, get back on the camera so y'all can see that I'm here. As a matter of fact, they actually talk about how it takes an athlete somewhere around 10 to 15 years before they actually have moved on from their sport. And it makes sense because when you look at the time frame of what they've invested, if they started playing since they were 5, they make it all the way to the next level and have a 4-year career. They're 24, 25, 26 years old. That's 21 years. That's about 20 years of their life. 20 to 21 years of their life that they've been this one thing. You're not just going to turn that around, right? So we have to look here. This is the identity phase. We have to, once we start seeking clarity, once we start understanding that there's an identity shift that has to take place, the next thing that we have to do is we have to build the vision. Okay, the game is over. The questions. Here's where the questions. What do I want to do next? What is my calling? And let me give you some clarity here to this question. What is my calling? Right? I truly believe this. Your purpose is found, let me see, God-given talent, who you are called to serve. That's what that means. Your purpose is found at the intersection of what God has given you from a talent perspective and who you're called to serve. That's where you'll find purpose. And once you find your purpose, the next thing is, what tool will you use to serve those who you were called to serve? What tool? All right. Talk about levels of value. The highest level of value, according to the Bible, is imagination. In the beginning, God created. So creation, imagination. The next level of value underneath that is communication. And God said, let there be, right? The level underneath that is unification. Let us make man in our image, unification. The level below that is implementation. That's the lowest level of value, right? And God took the man and formed him of the dust of the ground. That's the action. So now, why is that the lowest level of value? Because at that level, you're trading time, which is a limited resource, and attaching that to the body, which is also a limited resource. So the cap on that is limited. Imagination is infinite. Communication is infinite. So when we talk about purpose, purpose is aligned with wealth. Wealth is a spiritual construct. Therefore, purpose is wealth and purpose is spiritual. So then purpose is also a spiritual construct. But you can only find that if you take the time to do the work and allow God to reveal to you what your true purpose is. So for me, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Why? Because irregardless if there's anybody on here, if I'm only talking to myself, I'm still going to do this because I know this is how God designed me. And I know that this is important because regardless of how it looks online, I actually deal with people that deal with this issue. And I know they need help. Right? So when we talk about the next level, you go from clarity to identity. Spelled that wrong. That's okay. Might not spell, but I can count. Identity, right? To vision, right? The next level is execution. You see, on this level, you've already done the work on these 3 steps. You clearly understand who you are. You clearly understand who you are, who you serve. You clearly have aligned your purpose and you understand the vision that God has called you for your life. Now the next portion of that is execution. Who's going to help you? What does that help look like? What does the plan look like? All of that is in this space. I call this what people, right? That's who you've identified, but that's the WP, the system. What people are you going to use to help? They have to be in alignment with you, right? And I'm telling you, once you've mastered this next step here, this is where you reign. This is where you reign. This is where you're powerful. This is your power aspect. Why? Because now you have transformation. You are no longer the person that was operating in the wilderness. You have done the work and you have climbed the steps and you have done everything that you needed to do and aligned yourself with a whole new identity that will now allow you to have the transformation that you're looking for. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, as athletes, that's all that we're looking for. We're looking for the transformation. We're looking to be able to understand and answer the question, what do I do now that it's done? I'm here to tell you that right there is the reason why I've been able to help people to navigate this space. That right there is the reason why when I was dealing with the struggles that I was dealing with, I was able to figure out how to get out of that because I had the right people in my life to be able to help me. That right there is the reason why my business has started moving in the right direction. Being able to take my true life experiences and place them into a framework that I know that's going to yield results because it yielded results for me first. So before we get ready to wrap up, I wrote this down. I have a question. The question is this: did you choose to leave your sport or did your sport choose to leave you? I want to know. So when you're watching this, I want you to drop that answer in the comments. I read all the comments. I want you to drop that answer in the comment and I'm going to read it and I'm going to answer you. But really, really ponder upon that. Did you choose to leave? Or did the game decide you were done? Or more true to the form and faction of what I asked, did you choose to leave your sport or did your sport choose to leave you? I want us to think about that. So I'll say this. If anything that I said resonated with you, then what I want you to do is I want you to either click the link that's in the bio or that's in the description, or I want you to go to tonyhills.com and I want you to take the complimentary assessment. You see, this assessment has nothing to do with the outside world. This is you versus you sitting down and really answering the questions that are being presented to you so that you can see exactly where you are. I can tell you, when I got out of the league, I had no clue what I was going to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do this anymore. My situation was a little different than most because I actually left the game. I decided that I was done. But even still, there are still parts of the game that I was missing. The camaraderie, the ability to push myself beyond measures, the game days, battling with my brothers. Those things can never be replaced. But the thing that I did understand and that I did discover through my journey of the wilderness after 8-9 long years, right, is that my platform was the game. But my purpose and my calling was to be able to serve others. And there was a lot of long nights to get to that point. But I'm here to tell you that the same thing that made you a great athlete is the same thing that'll make you a great entrepreneur, the same thing that make you a great corporate worker, the same thing that'll make you a great father, a great mother, a great husband, a great wife, a great writer, whatever it is that God has purposed in your heart. It's time to get off the bench and get into the game of your life. So that's what we got tonight. I appreciate you guys joining me. Like I say, I do this to be able to help as many people as I can. And if you want to get in touch with me, all you got to do is go to tonyhills.com and you will be able to see everything that you need to see in order to get in touch with me. Also, for those of you that are interested in the episodes that we drop with other athletes that we talk about this same topic with, go to the quietarenapodcast.com and you will be able to see the shows and the episodes on the link. But we're here to help, man. So there ain't no fancy closeout. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm doing the thing that God has purposed in my heart. And every Friday, 7 p.m., I will be right here. I'm prayerful that I'll see you here too. It is your man, Tony the Tycoon. I'm out.